tonight regarding your RSA. It actually comes from questions that were asked both at this community council and at South Point Community Council 2 months ago when we brought up the whole idea of should we raise the mill rate to keep going with our road upgrade stuff. Well, I'm going to rely on maybe you and Lucy. Make sure everybody gets a copy. Okay. How are you, Lucy? The first one, because it became pretty obvious.
Prepared.
You mean the bunch you were the last week. Something that came up at both community councils was a lack of understanding of what is the road service area, how does it function, how is it created, can I join it, can I leave it, that kind of thing. And that's what Roy is passing out right now. So it's double-sided. Keep the front and the back. But it'll give you a thumbnail that you can take home with yourself and look at in depth. This is how this road service area functions. One of the questions that came up is where are all the road service areas? There are 16 of them. And where are we? This is the Butte road service area. Now, just to make things confusing, it is not the same boundary as a community council. It's also not the same boundary as the fire service area. They all have P. We actually cut a two community councils for this road service area. Because the borough is a second-class city, it does not have road towers itself. So the way that it can act and actually manage its road system is through the establishment of what they call service areas, road service areas for roads, fire service areas for fire. If you're looking at this, there's a couple items I want to bring up because it was a major part of the question. How is the RSA funded? 97% of it is property tax. That's what you pay as your RSA mill rate, not the total mill rate for your property. 3% of it comes from the vehicle registration tax. That's as of today. As we go through about the next 5 to 6 years, we expect that amount to drop and eventually zero. So we'll be losing that right now 3%. The part of that that bothers me, and I think I mentioned it when we talked about the mill rate increase, is a good chunk of that vehicle registration tax money is specifically available for 50-50 match for things like dust control, for things like gravel road repair. And so we're not only losing the funding that came from that tax, we're losing the ability to pick up another 50% from the borough to help offset that funding or add to it. Some of the questions that came up, can some other RSA use money out of this RSA? And the answer is no. Specific to the tax money, the way the code is written, any tax money we collect for Greater Butte RSA has to be spent in Greater Butte RSA. The Assembly has in the past, maybe Michelle can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard at least a couple of times when they thought about, you know, that one over there has got a lot of money left in it, it's sitting in fund balance, can we reach out and use it someplace else? And every time the borough attorney has told them, no, it's got to be spent here. What happens to, we get to the end of the year, we have a certain amount of money in the pot, we haven't spent it all. Do we lose what's left? And the answer is no. It goes into what's called a fund balance account. That carries forward to the next year. It's one of the sources that we use for things like capital projects. We cannot spend that money until we come in with a specific item where we're going to spend it and get the Assembly to approve that. So we have to request it, but we don't lose it. It's just not a slush fund item.
Sir, may I ask a question about that particular statement? When you say that it's not lost, it goes to the next year. Does it still have to stay in that?
In that RSA.
In that RSA.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it does not move to any kind of general.
Each
fund.
RSA has a specific account set up for it. And by the way, the Assembly has to approve the mill rate and the accounting system for each RSA. They do it annually. It's not a blanket thing that goes for 20 years.
Okay.
So it gets reviewed every year.
Okay.
Anybody in here interested in can I opt in or out of an RSA? That was a big question at South Connect.
Yeah, like I live off of Tony Highway. Well, that's a big highway, so That's not your,
Okay, that question came up at South Nick. My driveway accesses a state road, it does not access a borough road. Why are you taxing me? RSAs are community service units, not individual service units. They serve an entire community within the boundary of that. That was decided, by the way, this year in the Supreme Court of the state of Alaska, that yes, that does apply as a community service. As long as you live within that community, you pay that tax.
so if the brush is growing up alongside Glen Highway, I call you up and say, you want to come and cut that down?
No, because I handle borough roads, you call it the state and say, get on it. State maintains state roads, we don't have anything to do with it.
Okay.
By the way, let me run through pretty quickly. If you did want to opt in, which is what normally occurs, although we've had one case of somebody trying to opt out, you have to opt in or out as a community, which means you need more than just one house. The best example we've got right now is the Hunter Creek development beyond Hunter Creek Bridge off the end of the North River Road. They have talked about, some members have talked about coming into the borough, how would they, or into the RSA, how would they do that? The way to do it is to go around a petition of the people that live in that community, which is outside the boundary of the RSA, and they need the signatures of the residents there who own at least 51% of the property represented in the RSA to say, yes, we want to try to come in. That goes through the clerk to the borough manager. The borough manager does what's called a feasibility study. I think it's pretty much, if you want it, we'll try to do it. That then goes to the assembly. If the assembly approves the recommendation from the manager, and the manager also has a draft ordinance to support it, they'll pass that ordinance. That ordinance says at the next regular election, you get a chance to say, as a community, do we accept you into the community? And there'll be two votes, two items on that ballot. One will be for the people, and I'll pick on Hunter Creek, that live in Hunter Creek. Do you wish to join the RSA? The other vote will be for everybody else that's already in the current RSA. Do we want to accept Hunter Creek into the RSA? Both of those votes have to pass. It has to be yes from both parties before it's accepted. Same thing with if you want to opt out.
Yeah, the borough says 51% to opt out.
Okay, one of the questions that I would have is, does Hunter Creek have to have a standard that they have to meet before they can come into the RSA?
No.
So they can have substandard roads,
Into the RSA.
and they can come into the RSA.
Look at all of our substandard roads right now, having together.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. Do we want to accept more substandard roads into the RSA?
We would like not to, but being realistic, how else are they going to upgrade the roads?
By having them done by the people that are developing the property in the first place?
Okay, but the people who built the property in the first place are long gone.
You mean they have no responsibility beyond just
Go find them.
throwing something up there?
Go find it.
Huh.
Have you had second voted before?
Yeah.
Let's see votes.
Yeah, it can be really hard to pin down, okay, who did the development? And it was done 1970.
That's not continuing today, though, is it? We wouldn't do that now, would we?
No.
Well, we would hope not.
Huh?
We've had one
Okay.
reconstruction project here that came in substandard, and I'll admit it, right up front. We have 4 contractors, we have 4 contract administrator on the job. And so I've got one completely reconstructed piece of a major subdivision off Pinnack River Road that the residents would like for me to pave, but I'm saying no. Because I think that whole ground's going to start moving.
Where's the Cabbage Patch? I'm sorry to bug in on that. I keep hearing about it.
Cabbage Patch is off of Blumberg Loop. Go clear out just.
How old is that one?
That is late 60s or early 70s.
And it was actually pretty well built. You know, with a super standard, and they could spend another $100,000 before it, I think.
Can a homeowner who is not found, I'm sorry to keep asking.
That's okay.
If they're not in a CIP that's addressed, but the homeowners want to get it paved, can they collectively do that without using RSA funding?
Yeah, and you can actually tap into RSA funding if you wish.
Good.
You can fund it yourself. The assembly will approve that in a minute. just remember that if you're going to do full paving, that's about $300,000 a mile.
300,000 per mile.
That's a bargain.
Wow, paving's expensive.
For the sake of time, if you could, we'll have one more question back there. If you would write your questions down, let Mike finish, and then we can have some questions at the end for the sake of time. That'd be great. One question in the back real quick, and then we'll...
My question is that since we can't have a special tax category for truckers, what can the community do in order to try to get reimbursed from the state for the damage that truckers do to our roads?
I don't know of anything.
Well, there's got to be something. I mean, can we like get our assemblyman to put a bill in or something? I mean, what?
Mike, I can address that after you're done, if you'd like.
Yeah, you're getting into one of those things. That's going to be an economic question and an administrative question we're looking here to be. Not a medical question. This is an appropriate question. Am I really going to go out and tax businesses because they're doing what they're normally supposed to do?
Well, no, but
and
since the state is benefiting from these businesses, then surely they could chip in.
Okay. I'll make one last comment. I want you to think about it, not react to it.
Okay.
Should we also tax ATV riders because they tend to tear up the edge of paved roads when they come up on them or the ditch line?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm an ATV rider.
All right, so we'll let Mike continue, so if you guys have questions, just wait till the end. And
We got a little ways to go here, so I want to jump through this. Take their attention to what is maintenance and how is it performed. Most people think that maintenance is entirely the contract. The contract is, we have an ongoing maintenance contract. It is a competitive bid contract. That means the low bid prevails. Whoever the low bidder is gets the job. We've been lucky because we've had good contractors in this RSA since I've been here. We've never been stuck with a big flux. There's also maintenance that's done either through subsidiary contracts for specific projects. We can do equipment rental agreements that show up as maintenance. A lot of the thawing of culverts is a good example of that. The borough also has a road maintenance crew. And we get a fair amount of, all your sign work, for instance, is done by a borough maintenance crew, not by the contractor. So when we say what is maintenance, all those things are in there. By the way, who has authority to deal directly with the contractor? It's not me. Roy, myself, Lucy, our RSA supervisors were volunteers. We are a communication link. We have no direct authority over the contractor, over the contract, over the award of monies. I can't spend money. All I can do is recommend how it gets spent. So we have a road superintendent. There are now 4 of them in the borough. Each of them handles more than one. In fact, ours now, Will Barrickman is our road superintendent out here, and I think he's got 6 RSAs under his belt.
Will what?
Will Barrickman.
Barrickman?
Barrickman. B-A, it's on your little sheet.
Oh, so
Give me that phone number.
Okay.
I'll find
Okay,
it.
yeah,
There it is.
But Barrickman's the only one who can deal directly with the contractor. Now, if I can't get a hold of Will and the contractor is having problems, I will talk directly to the contractor. I simply cannot direct him. I can't order him to do anything. Barrickman is the one, if the contractor is not performing to what the contract requires. Remember, their contracts are written with fairly low standards in order to keep the price down. This isn't Cadillac work. Will's the only one who can actually shut the contractor down, find the contractor, make him go back and redo the work at his expense. Also, if he asks for work that's outside the scope, either in type or in quantity, of that original contract, only Will can authorize that, because now we're spending more RSA money. We're giving it to that contractor to do additional work. So what's the difference between that and capital improvement projects, and how do we perform those? Capital improvement is any upgrades that are beyond the scope of the maintenance contract. So if I've got roads over the Kenny subdivision that are substandard, we would like to fix them, the drainage system doesn't work. This is going to be a fairly expensive project, and it's not routine maintenance, it's reconstruction of a substandard road. That will go forward as a capital improvement project. How do I fund that amount? Basically, that's what comes out of, we set aside a certain amount of money out of the RSA budget every year for capital projects. Some are really small, $20,000, I'm not sure, for the CIP project. Some are pretty good size, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. It was a big enough project. So part of it's funded right up front out of our base annual budget. Part of it comes out of that fund balance. If there's a fair chunk of money left in there, that's another pot I can reach for. I can also look for matching money, and I can look for state grants. Matching money is still tentatively available to us. State grants are gone. They cut the budget, in case you haven't noticed. And the grant money went out the door. How do we perform CIP projects? Again, they're competitive bid contracts. So low bid prevails.
I got a question for you, Mike.
We're going to wait till the end for questions.
Let it go.
The Sullivan Bridge there, I heard, I talked to like the manager and Mr. Stoltz, and I heard that that was state and federal money. And I heard you were a Snake River Community Council, and you said that that was, a lot of that came out of the RSA.
None of that was RSA money. It was state. The Sullivan Bridge by itself was actually state money. There's no federal money in that. That's not a federal road. You can't spend federal dollars on non-federal, federally recognized major highways. So they can spend state money on the Glen Highway. If they push it really hard, they might be able to spend federal money on the Old Glen Highway. When it comes to Sullivan, not a chance. However, they can also do, if you're a good politician and a good money manager, you can do things like, well, we thought we were going to spend this over here, and what we're going to do is use federal money on this project and take the state money that's there and put it over here. Sullivan Bridge is actually state money managed by the borough. They said, we've got the bucks, we don't have the management staff, we'll give you the dollars, you manage the contract.
So there's no RSA, but...
Thank goodness for this. Yeah, that's a knock your eye out, Rick.
Why?
Okay, how do we, one of the other questions is, how do we prioritize the CIP list? Because right now our CIP list for this RSA is about, oh, what'd you guess, 25 items long now? 25 to 30 of road, not entire subdivisions in every case, but certainly spot places where we know we've got really serious substandard road problems we need to fix. We need to prioritize that list so we get to it. And this right now is the only RSA that does that with what I call an objective analysis of the road itself physically. We've got to look at the road with a checklist.
Now, I'm not going to pass these up. If anybody's interested, I'll leave a few up here that you can come stare at.
This is something we actually worked up in this RSA, and I've used it since 2006 pretty consistently. But it's our way of going out, looking at the roads, comparing it to the road standards for the borough. What are borough road standards? They're all found in the subdivision construction manual. So what we did was take the construction manual and say, okay, here are the items that a standard road should have, and if it's less than that, width, material, drainage. And by the way, who makes the final call on that CIP list? Actually, it's jointly done. Road superintendent and the three of us. We do a drive around in the spring, look at everything that's out there, and that's one of the ways we pick up additional roads or say, we're going to change the priority. And by the way, I'm not stuck with, well, my road's been on the list for the last 5 years, how come it's not at the top? We don't do it that way. I want it done on physical condition. Okay, I'll get you a pass on that. You can shut up. Keep it here. If you would see that everybody gets one.
Just this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You guys have this?
This is answers to specific questions that came up from both community councils. And since I either one of those. I managed to be visiting a doctor that day. I don't know which ones came from which community council, but I had a feeling that they were fairly similar to both. So how many residents are in this RSA? I can only give you an answer to that by researching tax dollars. Frankly, that would take more time than I've got to devote to it. But just looking at the map, the county's taxable properties, roughly 2,295 properties inside the RSA that would be taxable, would be the effective revenue rate. Just remember that a number of those are undeveloped, so they're not worth a whole lot of money, and several properties they have the same owner. If you jump to the third one on this, that's one of the reasons we looked at that. What is the cost per residence? You can't do, I've got $22.95 and I'll divide the budget by that, and that's your cost, because it's based on the value of your property, not just on how many properties are out there. So there's a little table there that shows you what the current mill rate costs you, what the proposed increased mill rate would cost you, and what that would mean in terms of how many dollars it would cost you per year if it went all the way to the 3.84 we asked for.
If you have raw land, you're in the RSA.
It's still taxed.
It's still taxed. Okay. It's just the...
No more.
Yeah, its value is lower.
Exactly.
It's the buildings are what drive the thing up. That's one of the reasons why when we get a new subdivision in, and we accept that subdivision, all those roads are accepted at that time, that gets added to our maintenance contract. At the time we accept that subdivision, that goes to the contractor. He gets paid that additional mileage at his bid rate per line for that year and putting it on. What if there's no houses in there? Because everybody, I've heard this a lot. Well, it's a new subdivision, and once you sell that land and you get all this tax money, you should be able to maintain the road for the tax money you're getting in. Not initially. Initially, it's law. So until people start buying and building, and that usually takes 4, 5, maybe 10 years before the build-up is when you get enough income to begin to offset the cost.
That's the borough issue.
What is the cost breakdown per mile? What I tried to do is show you what is road maintenance that we do. It's normally maintenance. This is the base budget, not additional monies from the state or anybody else. Road operations, part of that's every time we put in a new street light, we also pick up a charge, a monthly charge from NEA, which we pay out of our RSA funds. So that gets thrown into road operations. Not a big chunk of money. Road repairs, how much do we throw into the CIP generally every year? And then administration. Our administrative costs have gone up, and one of the reasons for that is we're now listing most of the substandard roads that we've got, not all of them, but most of them. And one of the ways they calculate your administrative costs, that's something that's done in finance, not by road crews. They take 60% of that charge rate is based on what's the workload you generate. How much in terms of contracting, finance, procurement does that generate? So right now our rate's very high because we're holding up our hand saying, we've got some major problems out here. We would like to keep poking at them and get them solved. Because that'll let that rate come right back down. And then stay down once it comes down. Again, why am I going after the trucking businesses? Because I don't know the legal way at this point to do that. Who decides when a road needs grading? I can recommend it. The final decision maker would be Will Barrickman, the road superintendent. By the way, Will Barrickman tends to be in this RSA about 3 times every week at a minimum. And it usually spends about a half a day. So he probably knows this road system better than I do. Why do roads turn back into potholes 3 days after grading? Because they're built out of poor material. The biggest single answer. We've got a lot of roads that are basically silt rich. We've got a lot of roads that are silt poor and sand poor. They're cobble and oversized gravel. Either one of those, if you saturate them and then try to grade them, or why did you run a compactor? Well, if it's saturated and I run a compactor in it, what am I going to do to it? It's going to make mud pipes. It just turns to slush. So we do require the contractor to compact after grading or as part of his grading operation, provided the road condition will allow that to be effective. And if it's flooded, stay off with the contractor. You can mess it up. Wait for it to dry out enough that you can actually accomplish something. Upgrades to Bergman are shown, and by the way, that was set back to 2017 because we didn't have the money to do it in 16. One that's bothered me a lot, when the street light at Delroy's bus stop go on. I have no idea if it's out of our hands. When I first got that request, that looked like a piece of cake project. And then we found out it's a private light pole. It's powered through the bar and the bar transformer. The light pole probably sits on private ground, and the borough doesn't own any property there. Legally, I can't do anything about that light. So I'm still bickering with that neighborhood about what they can do, but that's the basic answer there. And I think I already mentioned this. When will we pave the right subdivision roads, since some of the residents have requested it, and my guess is we probably never will pave it with rigid pavement. We might put a wrap cap on it some year after. I want to give it another 2 or 3 years of like a good wet spring and just see how it reacts. Because I expect it to move. Okay, now I'm done BSing. I'm going to turn it over to these guys. Any last minute questions?
Yeah, now's the time for questions.
Yeah.
What's the minimum on plow, the minimum of inches on plowing the roads?
4.
Is it 4?
Yeah. And by the way, as the budgets have declined, some RSAs already are in this. What's our reaction to that? There can be a couple, and I'm gonna pick on Talkeetna here for a minute, since nobody's here from Talkeetna. Talkeetna, actually these 3, Trapper Creek, Talkeetna, and Caswell Lakes, and they're big RSAs. They've got a lot of roads. They have a very small population. Now, Caswell Lakes is improving in the population game. But I'll pick on Trapper Creek because one of the things, 2 things have happened to them. The one that's really kicking them in the butt right now is they no longer have enough money in their base RSA budget to fund their contract. So the first year that happened to them, there's a way to go through the assembly and set up what's called a revolving loan fund. The assembly at that point will establish how much do you need in that loan, what interest rate will you pay with your RSA tax money, and what time limits are on the repayment. Are we give you 10 years, 20 years to repay the loan? So we take out a loan and we get our maintenance done. And then the next year, we still don't have the money. So we take out another loan. I can break that RSA pretty damn fast that way. It's mill rate in order to just keep up with the cost of maintenance. The other option, and this is one we've considered here, if it ever got to that point with us, is to lower the level of service. And probably the biggest place you would feel that would be in wintertime. How soon would we respond? What would be the normal depth before we start plowing, and how deep would we plow? Would we allow a snow floor and ice floor to build up? The first step would be to go from 4 inches to 8 inches before we start plowing. The second step would be to go to 12.
That would be disastrous.
Now, nobody would like that, including me.
People could plow their own area.
Your own area, but that ain't going to do the road system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you address what they asked at the Nick River meeting, where they said, well, what if we consolidated all of the RSAs?
It's been proposed.
Tell them what would happen.
Okay. What was proposed, it's been proposed before, is instead of 16, let's have 1. And that way I can move the money around where it's needed. So if Trapper Creek is short, it can't fund its maintenance contract, but I've got someplace like North Colony that's got a fair amount of money sitting around, or Bogart, which has got a lot of money sitting around. I can take some of their money and put it up there, because it's all one RSA, it's not going outside of the RSA boundary. The RSAs themselves said, wait a minute, once you make one, where's the political power? Where's the voter power? Where's the, I'm going to jerk your chain, mister, if you don't listen up, right here. Marcella Palmer Core area. And so everybody was thinking, that's fine, except instead of the money going that way, it's going to go the other way. Go all up into the core area, because that's where the population is. So at this point, none of us are voting for that.
A question I have, we see here that we're paying $3,387 per mile for admin. Because we do this RSA thing. Is that a standard amount for?
No.
What would you consider to be the admin expense in Anchorage, Kenai, Fairbanks,
I
San
don't
Diego?
know. Ours at one time was about 12%, and now it's up around just under 20.
So that's fairly high because we're working out in so many.
Especially because we raised our hand and said we've got problems and we're trying to fix them.
Well, as you were just saying, then if 4 or 5 outside the core areas wanted to do that, say, no, we're outside the core. We don't have to play with inside the core. We could do that. So that we would combine several road service areas that are all outside the core and say, that's ours, you can't pitch it.
That's a possibility. It's never been brought up.
And save some of that admin funding.
Yeah, the admin amount would simply be spread over the 3. It would still be the same percentage. You're just going to take these 3 budgets, wrap them together, and if it's 15% more or less for all 3, it's still going to be 15% for the one that results.
So you're not going to gain anything?
Yeah, it doesn't gain anything. What it does gain you is flexibility of where I put the money. Other questions? My hope is this helps.
It's a lot of information, Mike, thanks.
You bet.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a quick question before you go. Can I just ask the group, how many people here live on state-owned highways versus RSA? Okay, so that's how many of us? A third. Perhaps we could have RSA discussions when some of us aren't here to hear it, because it doesn't matter. 1/3 of us don't care.
Sure we do. We still do because
Well,
we're still
the same answer that I gave to somebody at South Kenneck River who said, my driveway is on South Kenneck River Road. And my response was, yeah, and you never drive on Burwell Road, any place in RSA 26, do you?
It's
You never run to this one, you never go to the school.
I have a question, Mike. Is it legal to clear your driveway, push the snow across a public roadway?
No.
No.
They can
Okay.
fine you.
Okay.
It needs to come back on your property.
They can plow you in.
Yeah.
Good.
I'll tell you that it's honored in the breach probably more than it's honored by following it.
No, I know it happens around here on a fairly frequent basis.
Yeah, and contractors hate that crap.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So we'll move on to the treasurer's report. We have that with us tonight, so we'll have that, and then we'll continue on here. Go ahead.
In our checking account, we have $197.19, and in the building fund available right now is $17,956.79.
Motion to accept.
Motion. I second.
Right up front here. Okay, so that'll pass. We don't have, like I said, we don't have the secretary's report, so we'll catch up with that next month. So for old business here, I had some information to report back to the community council. After the election last month, I took the ballots and all the tabulations to Lonnie McKechnie, the borough clerk, who didn't want to take them for the same reasons that were described in the community council, I guess, leading up to the election. Self-governing, we don't fall under the rules. She kept them and she will keep them until today. The borough throws all of their ballots out after 30 days as well. So they don't keep those in perpetuity. This is coming from the borough clerk. So she was glad to take those, well, I should say she was reluctant to take those, but she did take them. and held on to them for 30 days. She does not want them in the future because they don't, there's no venue, there's no purpose for the borough to hold on to those elections, the results. Upon a little bit more investigation and talking with her, we can certainly do a little bit better job of getting information as far as finding out how they want to see. They do have a repository for meeting minutes and those type of things at the borough, which I think the community council discussion, I think that's pretty easy to make happen, so I would expect that to be an improvement for 2016. Other than that, I think it was all pretty straightforward, so if there's any questions on that, please let me know. Yes, ma'am.
Just to be proper, my name is Mitzi Van Asselin. One of the questions that I had about the election was, do we still have the sign-in sheets for the ballots? Because I personally would like to get a copy of that, just so I can see if I recognize any of the people, because many of the people that were here last time, I did not recognize. I had never seen them before. Going with that, we did not have a ballot election in November. We had ballots, we had a ballot box, we counted ballots, and we made it look official.
Did you assist in the counting of those ballots?
Yes. However, the man who was passing out the ballots did not ask for valid identification. A driver's license is not valid identification for the simple fact that you do not have to have your resident address on that driver's license.
Okay.
When I made him look at my voter card, I hope he was joking when he said he couldn't see how that made it official that I could vote in the Butte area. Maybe he's never seen a voter card before, but it says very clearly on there where your polling place is. And that really is the only valid way you can tell that somebody is allowed to vote in this particular residential area. The other thing, there were also a lot of people who could not vote because they could not get into the building. They couldn't even get into the parking lot. We had asked for extended hours for voting so that people could come during daylight hours to vote, but that was not allowed. So, as I said, we did not have a valid election, and we need to correct that because we need to make sure that this community has people who can have a say and not have to go to extraordinary measures to do that. Thank you.
Okay, just to address those, thank you for that. We decided, and it was discussed in previous meetings before the election, that we were not in the business of disenfranchising anybody who wished to vote based on their ability to provide and accommodate as many people. And of course, for the last hour, 45 minutes, there was no line, there was no inability for people to come in and vote. As far as having a day-long election process for the community council, I have a job, and I work 60, 70 hours a week. I give up my time to be here. I don't know of anybody that's going to come spend 8 or 10 hours here to monitor in a quasi-borough fashion election that's not required to be held to the same standard. Is preposterous. This is a community council. This isn't the Supreme Court. This isn't a national election. Okay? Please. We have all of our sign-ins here. Yeah, we're going on the honor system a little bit here, that people that are coming to our community councils to speak and to vote on any kind of election topic, any kind of informal show of hands we have for the things that we push forward to the community or to the borough assembly, it's based on the honor system, and we really don't have the type of power that's going to make a difference in whether or not 5 people in this room actually live in the community council, and I don't believe that's ever been an issue. It's never, I think, to say that we've got some sort of gerrymandering or some sort of problem with our elections is sour grapes, frankly.
No, it's not.
If there's any additional questions on that, we can argue this till we're blue in the face.
Let me say this. You say these things, and some of them are quasi-true, but let me tell you this. The community council elections are supposed to follow the same format that the borough, the state, and
Please talk to
federal
Lonnie
elections.
McKechnie, you're incorrect. You are incorrect.
The state, borough, and federal elections are supposed to follow.
You are incorrect.
I am not incorrect, sir. On top of that, when you say that the last 45 minutes of the time that we were here last time, nobody came in to vote, that's because the parking lot was full and there were people standing out here on the deck. There were people who could not get in here simply because they could not see, they could not walk up here from up here with all of these things, oh, well, we don't have to do this and we don't have to do that. Think about what you're saying. You're saying nobody was disenfranchised. You're saying that you worked 60, 70 hours a week. Well, you can ask for volunteers to come out here. There were several people who volunteered to be here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to sit here and wait for people to come in and vote. Because a lot of people don't want to be out at night, especially in the cold, trying to get into this little tiny building to vote.
Duly noted. We'll take that up for the next election. Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion that at the next meeting, we familiarize ourselves with these bylaws and then proceed to act like a body that follows bylaws. First off, reading them would help. It seems like we had 3 meetings pre-election where total confusion. No one even knew these existed. And then bada bing, they just appear and suddenly we must follow them. No effort was made to correct for the fact that last year only...
Do you have a motion? You have a motion?
Excuse me. So my motion is to put on the agenda for next month that we have a fix-it meeting. We address the issues that were brought up. We look at these bylaws and we say, is there anything about them that could be changed? And do we know what they say? Are we even working with the correct one? So a little meeting focusing on our bylaws and our mission statement would be of great service to all of us.
Okay, great. That's been
I
noted.
second that motion.
That's been put on the agenda for next meeting. We can bring that up again under old business for next meeting.
So we have to have a vote.
No.
No.
You made a motion.
She made a motion to put it on the schedule for next month. We have a second right here. If we feel the need to vote on that, that's fine.
Mitzi, then as...
But we're not going to take the topic up until next meeting. It's on the agenda for next meeting.
So what does that mean exactly?
There's been a second of the motion to add it to the agenda for the next meeting.
Mr. Impey would like to have a show of hands to have that on the agenda for next meeting. Can I see a show of hands? Okay.
How many?
Opposed? 10.
How many?
10.
Okay.
Opposed?
You don't want to know what your bylaws are about.
Well,
So we have 4 people here that do not want to know what our bylaws say.
you can bring it up next meeting.
What was the total?
10 to 12. 12 opposed. Yeah.
All right, I would also like to address...
Ma'am, hold on one second, please. Please have a seat for a second. Is there any additional comments on the election results from last month? I just wanted to make sure we were finished up with that little tangent.
Okay, the remark was made that nobody could get in here. I went out on the deck myself and was signing people in.
I talked to Dave Joey, he went home because he couldn't get in here.
Question in the back, please.
Just that members of my own family, their ID was not even checked.
We weren't checking IDs, ma'am.
Well, you're supposed to.
This is not a borough election. We are not...
To match the borough code.
Here it is.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do to make this real easy for everybody here, because I'm not going to argue with you at all. I'm done arguing with you about
Yeah,
what...
if there was any more comments.
That's great, and I'm going to address this. I'm going to ask Lonnie McKechnie, the borough clerk, who I spoke with in painful detail about this very topic, because I heard these concerns several times beforehand. And this isn't my opinion, those are debatable. The fact is, which are not debatable, facts are not debatable, the borough does not care how we hold our elections, the manner in which we hold our elections, and we are not required to have the same requirements that of a borough election. That is a fact.
So we don't have to follow the Matsu Borough Code?
That is correct.
If it is not in your bylaws.
That is a fact. They don't care, they have no interest in our elections other than, please tell us who your members are. That's it.
I'm just talking about the code that covers community councils.
It says they are self-governing. You may do whatever you like.
It says, and it does say that we have to hold those elections the same way that state and the borough does.
That is incorrect. I'm telling you, this is a fact. I'm reciting a fact again, not available for discussion on opinion type basis. It does not apply. And I will have Lonnie McKechnie come here and you can argue with the borough clerk on how elections are working. That's just the straightest way I can tell you. I will not argue this discussion any longer. That's it.
Now, may I tell you what the bylaws say?
Bylaws. Ma'am, we're not discussing bylaws this evening. You asked that that be put on the ballot for next meeting.
All right.
The answer is no.
I want to address what you just said. All right.
We're going around in circles, ma'am. I'm not going to have this discussion with you. I'm not going to.
So you are going to tell me that the bylaws that you signed and filed with the borough clerk, which by the way is invalid because it wasn't done correctly.
Opinion.
Okay. It wasn't done correctly.
Opinion.
You say. But in the bylaws, it says, right in your own bylaws, that it will follow the borough, state, and federal way of providing election materials.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions on the topic? Okay, moving on.
Yes, I have a question.
Under the wire.
Since we don't follow bylaws, we don't care what the bylaws say, and we can run elections any way we want, do anything we want, can you tell me what the function of this entity is? You all wanted to be on it, so what is the purpose of the Butte Community Council?
The purpose of the Butte Community Council, and I'll stand corrected by anybody else on the Community Council, is to reflect the will of the people within the Butte Community Council to the Borough Assembly, make recommendations to our road service area, and make other recommendations as they affect the Butte community area.
It actually says, to rebut that, it says you're to improve communication between the borough and the citizen within the council area and to encourage community involvement of all citizens.
Okay.
And basically what you're doing is you're trying to negate them.
Can I say something? I think you guys are pretty struggling that we're not going to be fair up here. And believe it or not, we have no agenda here, nothing gained. We're just trying to represent the community. So the election was fair. It was honest. We had you guys come and count so you wouldn't think we were trying to pull a quick one. And I checked the ID. And there was people that didn't make it in because it was full, and they came back, and it wasn't as full, and they came and voted. And a lot of the people that I knew came in here, I knew them personally. And I really appreciate the outcome of all the people showing up. I like right here, we got a lot of people here, and that's where we want input, but we need positive input. We need positive. And I think that's real important. That's all I say.
I think you're quite right. It was a good election. We had a lot of turnout. Now, the next step is, did we collect information so that we can encourage more participation? Did we get addresses? Did we get email? Can we get these bylaws put up online, as you suggested? What are the goals for the year to increase public participation at meetings?
Well, I'll tell you, there's some discussion on the board here already about the direction for 2016. We do not have a full slate here. Thank you, Mike. This evening and next month, I think the discussion will be who's going to be president, secretary, treasurer, and the like.
A point of information, please. I need to correct you. We don't have a president. And that's why we need to look at these bylaws.
Ma'am, let me finish, please.
You're wrong.
Ma'am.
It's a chairman. That's not the same. You haven't read these. You don't follow them.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. If we're going to continue to get interrupted with your diatribes. I'll just call the meeting and we'll be done with it, 'cause I'm not going to sit here for the next hour and listen to this. You're wasting everybody's time. Everybody's time is being wasted, including mine and everybody else that's here. I have a couple things I'd like to get to, and at the end, if you'd like to continue, those who want to go home can go home and you can entertain us with your wit further. That'd be great.
That right there is not encouraging.
It is not encouraging you to communicate. That is correct. That is my intent.
We agreed in August to have an agenda. Is what you want to talk about on the agenda?
So I'm going to move on. I'd like to move on here. So what we've got, ma'am, please.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a report here from Jim Sykes in the Community Council. I'll go ahead and read through that. He's got cards up here, and I'll leave this up on the table if you would like to read it further. He's in Chickaloon this evening. The buyouts for FEMA have not yet been decided, and we should know one way or the other any day. The borough checkbook is online, expected to be available December 23rd. Individual checks will be a few more months, but some of the transparency that he's been pushing for might actually be happening. Also, a cost of community service study is headed for the first draft. It should provide a visual picture of how much the budget raises revenue and spends money in each community. It will be online for comment, as will next year's budget. Your ideas and active participation are always welcome. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa Festivus, Happy Healthy New Year. Look forward to seeing you next year. One other item, Jim Creek Recreational Area Advisory Group. Basically, development of loop trails, continuous paving. Kenny Barber may have a full report on that. Do you have anything for us on that?
Yeah, just, there's like, I don't remember exactly how much money was left over from the old money, but what they're looking at doing is paving some more on that parking lot. The other thing is to look at putting power down there. And the other thing was to put in the horse deals for tying up horses. What do you call them?
Hitching rails.
Hitching
Rails, yeah. Looking to put in hitching rails down there. And that was about it, I think. And there's another, what, 100 and some thousand for some other trails that are going to go in there.
Okay.
That's basically what we said, I guess. You agree with that, Gregory? You were there.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Any new business we want to bring up? Yes, ma'am.
For those that don't know me, I'm Michelle Olson. I know a lot of you guys are coming in to me at the office. I work for the borough. I am one of the floodplain managers. I'm also one of the permit technicians, so for all the unhappy things, you get to come talk to me. It's kind of fun. I can tell you that we found out today, to update Jim's note, that we did not get the buyout monies this time around. There was $23 million in the pot, but it's a big state. There's a lot going on. Galena had issues. There's all kinds of different communities that had bigger issues than what we've got with a half dozen homes, on one part of the river and another half dozen on another part of the river. That's not to say they're not important. It's just when the state's looking at balancing out how they're going to divvy up that money, they have to go with the bigger need. And like Mike was saying earlier, if you got 50 and you got 6, you're going to go for the 50. It's just the way it works. We don't have a real response yet as to why. We wanted to know specifically why, if there's something we could change or improve or do differently on our next submission. It would help our chances. We'll go there. But we're still waiting for that kind of feedback. We do have our draft risk maps that FEMA is coming in January to meet with us and talk about those. The preliminary results, we did this study with the Corps of Engineers. It started in 2011, finally got it in 2013, but it's still draft, and FEMA won't look at it until we get the whole rest of the borough mapped. They're working on that now. We've got our draft versions. We're looking at them. Borough-wide, it looks like we're taking 1,800 homes out of the floodplain. About 870 of those are in Butte. Okay? So what we're going to have is we're still going to have floodplain along the Mat River, the straightaway, no matter what you do, still a flood zone. Bodenberg Creek, the actual creek bed, is a flood zone, so don't go stand in the middle of the creek and build your house, okay? Just don't do it. Go over there on the dirt. Besides that, you have to build 75 feet from water anyway, so, you know. But literally, except for a couple places, like where the fire trucks fill up, and there's where the cabin is on George Plumley Road. There's a couple places where it's low and the water comes up on the ground along the creek, but 99% of Bodenberg Creek is in the creek bed itself. And all of this crap from Caudell to Bodenberg is going away.
But when do you think that will be finalized?
That's a really good question. I'm trying to nail down that timeline, and so when the director comes next month and meets with us, I'll have a better idea of the timeline. But I am trying to figure that out. It's got to be borough-wide, so how fast can we get the whole borough? Just a second. Connect River, we are going to have some issues on the far side of the river. Most of this side of the river, the only floodplain is the tributaries along the sandbar. I mean, it's pretty much a no-brainer. If you're walking along and all of a sudden you go like this, that's the wet spot. That's where it's going to be in the flood zone. If you have to step up on a rock or a log, that's not. I mean, it's about that simple. So a lot of the flood zone is going to go away. I think there's 5 houses in the Butte, and they're all along the straightaway that are being brought in. We're still arguing some of those cases because I can't quite see where they say they're bringing them in. That I just can't see it happening. Watching numerous floods out here and living out here, the water doesn't go there. So I want them to show me some good scientific proof of why those homes should still be in danger and questionable. So we are looking at it as close as we can. We're not just rubber stamping it. It's the first time they've let us have new maps since 1985. We're not gonna mess this up. So we're trying to make sure we do a really good, thorough job. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to come down to the office and look at the draft map, see what they say, talk about their property. But I can tell you about 870 of those homes in this area are coming out finally.
Is the coming out of the flood zone fine, even if you have subterranean portions of homes?
Correct.
Okay, and so far as the rest of the borough, after all those areas that flooded, whoops, surprise areas that hadn't ever flooded because nobody developed them. Those are the ones now that are being mapped, areas that are developed, or all areas? We're
looking at everything. All the flood zones all across the borough. We're looking at areas that previously weren't developed and are now. You know, areas along Wasilla Creek that have been problematic. Now that Trunk Road moved, that's kind of changed some topography and things. We're looking at all of those, all around Wasilla Creek, you know, clear up to Trapper Creek and beyond.
The My Parcel map's starting to show more flood areas out around Knick Arm and off at various areas. So in your estimation, how many homes borough-wide do you think are going to be in, or what percentage of developed areas are going to end up in a flood zone because of what happened on Willow Creek and those other areas?
A lot of that was already in a flood zone.
It was, okay.
So a lot of that was already in a flood zone. So if you look at my property now today, and I'm sorry I'm speed talking, but I'm trying to hurry for Dean. But if you look on my property now, everything that shows that's in a flood zone is from the 1985 maps. None of that has changed because we can't start regulating to the new maps until they're no longer draft.
Okay, so other areas could still show up. Okay.
Yeah.
Not safe to move here.
I just have a question. You remember the Methodist who took that house out, those couple of houses out down by the bridge?
Yeah.
And all that happened, and the water rose so high that almost, I mean, it was inches within coming across the highway and dumping into Bodenberg. Did they do anything to make sure that doesn't happen again?
No, because there's nothing you can do.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. You cannot build a dike or a levee that will hold that river. So they can't. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. That was a good update. Any other new business? Yes, sir.
We had an election last month. We have spots open, chairman, vice chairman, secretary. Why can't we make a motion and have that spot?
That's a good question. The answer is that is decided amongst the community council. I mean, what position is within is decided within the community council board.
So
The committee
why
itself.
can't you guys do that right now?
Because we're missing 3 people.
Yeah, so,
Well, we would like to have all 7 here. I suspect if we didn't have all 7 here next week, we would go ahead and make that decision, but we're expecting that they would be here next month. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to ask why you guys are sitting in front of the fire engine. I think it would be a better arrangement under.
Really?
Yeah, so be careful. Yeah.
Question in the back?
I would just like to make a motion that we use some of the building fund money in a very short period of time to put lights on the outside of the building to illuminate the parking lot and to finish up the restroom and to add at least folding chairs to accommodate enough people.
It's a good suggestion, and I would ask
It's a
that.
motion. I want to put it forward as a motion.
I understand. I would like you to actually wait on the motion to put it forward or have that be seconded until we actually get into the discussions on so that those ideas can be captured as part of an entire plan and not a motion that happened well ahead of time.
And I can add to that, when I go in to sign the money that is there, I have to renew this every year. And the only way to get any money to put into the building, I have to go to borough and say, this is how we got the cameras. We voted here first if we wanted cameras in. And then I had to go to the borough itself to get the money funded. And they have to say to me, yes, I will let you sign off of that. No money can come out of any of this until it's out of the building fund. No money can come out of that until it is okayed here first. Then I have to go there and they have to say, oh, yes, cameras were a definite improvement on this building. Then they would release the money to me to say, I just can't go and say,
Doesn't the whole process start with someone making a motion?
it does.
Within the
But what
motion?
we're trying to focus on right now, because we've already got people that are willing to do some of this stuff, but we have to decide what do we want to do about a building. Because if we just keep adding $100 here, a couple hundred there, we're sinking it into this old building and we're not improving. We're not getting a bigger building.
I'm not saying you can't make a motion, I'm just saying I'd really like that to be part of a bigger discussion at the time. And certainly, if we want to start that process after the new year with a timeline for establishing the...
I don't understand why we can't.
I'm just saying my opinion. If you'd like to continue with the motion, I'm just saying my piece, then you're more than welcome to continue with the motion.
I just did. I did the motion. And then I can second it.
Brad did.
Okay, motion to put it on the agenda for next week, or next meeting, excuse me.
Well, why do you want to wait till next week? I mean, what's the problem? Mayor's not here?
That's not part of the problem.
What's the problem?
We don't have a problem. Would you like it to be discussed now? Is that part of your...
Yeah.
Please state your motion again so we can make sure we have it correct then for the meeting notes.
Oh, my motion is, could we please use some of the building fund to put lights on the outside of the building to illuminate the parking lot, to finish the bathroom, and to put in folding chairs?
can I add to her motion?
Not yet. For when? What's the time period you'd like to have that? Do you want to discuss that right now?
You know, I say ASAP.
Right, this meeting or next meeting? Very specific.
I'm sorry, what is your question?
Would you like it to be discussed this meeting, or do we want to have it next meeting?
We can do it this meeting, though.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
For this meeting, do I have a second to that?
Second.
Mr. MP seconds. Discussion. Yes, sir.
I would like to see a budget on that, so we know what kind of money we're spending. You know, if it was broke down into 3 pieces, some motion sensor lights on the outside would be very inexpensive, a little bit of wire. The bathroom is going to be probably, I don't know what needs to be done, what our septic situation is, that's going to be more expensive. Folding chairs, we might be able to secure those. So I'd like to see a budget so we can know, not just a blank check. Some of those things I think are a good idea, especially motion sensor lights on the outside, excellent idea. the bathroom, the folding chairs, let's take a look and see what that's going to cost us. So and my discussion is, I'd like to see a budget on this before I'm willing to say yea or nay.
Okay, other discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Effie?
There should be like another door here, the 10 cap size, you know, so you use that deck right there. There should probably should be another door like over there, so that people can use it like that. This last election, it was just a fire trap in here. And this isn't a load-bearing wall, I'm pretty sure, so why not get this ripped out?
Okay, what we probably need to do, Mr. Empey, on that is have continued discussion on this first one, and if there's an amendment to that, we'd have to take that up on the next go-around here, so we'll continue with the first, but it's noted, we'll continue on the first motion that's been made. Any discussion on the first motion still? Lights, bathroom, and folding chairs, any other discussion?
Yeah, I agree with Ron. I think that the bathroom is a no-go at this point. You'd have to know a whole lot more before you ever did anything with that. But the lights on the outside, absolutely, that's something that could be done fairly quickly.
Okay.
That's not a big deal. And it's something that's really needed here.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I say with the lights on this, I wouldn't have a motion light out there right now, because that's just going to bring in people hanging out here. We've got that finally settled down out here where kids aren't vandalizing so much and all that. I would opt to have something that I come down here early and turn the lights on, and have something I can come turn the lights on before the meeting starts and have them on and turn them off once people, because that $197 we have right now pays the electric bill and the gas bill. So,
you could get by with the lights fairly cheap. You know, with LED lights in it, they were motion sensor, they wouldn't use hardly anything at all. That would be very, very minimal. And do the cameras record in the dark?
Camera work.
yeah.
They do. Okay.
Any other discussion? So no further discussion on that, so we'll take a vote on the first motion, lights, bathroom, and folding chairs.
I'm sorry, can I amend that?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to take out the bathroom part.
There you go.
Okay, so we've got an amended first motion. We have a second to the amendment? Second. Okay, we'll go ahead and, any further discussion on that, we'll go ahead and take a vote on the motion for lights and folding chairs. All those in favor? 3, 4, 5, 6. 17 against? 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that motion passes. So we've got a motion that's passed for lights and folding chairs here. We need to attach a fiscal note, if I believe the term is correct to that here. I don't believe we have enough information. Is there anybody out there that'd like to make a motion on a timeline for the information, the budget and all that type of stuff to bring forward to the community council for next meeting?
I would suggest Charlene take the lead in finding that information.
Okay. Charlene?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Can you take the lead in finding that information for us, Charlene?
How much all that's going to cost?
Well, yeah, the lights especially.
Well, I would actually rather someone with a little more experience on the lights take
Okay.
that on. I mean, I can go research it for you, that's not a problem. I mean, I can go look at Lowe's, I can go find them, I don't care.
Is there anybody else that would like to bring any information on that for next meeting?
Yeah, I think you need a little more information. How many lights?
Well, we need a couple things here, Charlene. I would say we'd need to see a number of lights. I've come up with a couple of different scenarios.
Okay, if you can give me what I need to research, I can do that.
Okay, I think we could probably come up with some stuff. We're going to need a contractor for install, so we'll have some discussion about that.
Okay.
And get that moving.
Would you like me to also research that?
We'll get you some information, yeah. There'll be some calls that'll need to be made, some contractors to get some bid prices on what it would cost to do that.
Okay.
Does everything have to be done by bid, or can, me or Randy do something, or stuff like that?
Well,
Any volunteer work.
I would say that the answer is yes, if you have licensed electricians. I think that's probably something that we need to keep in mind since it's a public building.
For insurance purposes.
Safety purposes.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but certainly if there's people that are licensed electricians that want to throw it in as a volunteer, and you can find somebody to do that, that's a good option too, so. Do you have any other new business? Yes, ma'am.
It's not new. What's the Butte Community Council's take now on this increase in this RSA? Are we going to vote on that, or do you just go ahead and speak for it? Here they want to run it up to 3.84 from 3.45.
This is the exact type of thing that we would want to have discussion from folks within the community that are present and
Then
send a
put
vote.
that on the agenda for next.
We can do it right now.
I make the motion, put that on the agenda, that we need to take a vote on that next month and have a discussion.
You want to do it next month, or you want to do it right now?
Next month?
It needs to be on for next month so that members
More
are made
people
aware
can
of
be
it.
told.
It's going to involve a vote.
So we've got a motion to add a vote for the increase to talk about the increase for the road service area for the January meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Yes, ma'am?
I'd like to see this get on an agenda that's published so that we can get as many people as possible informed of this. And if there's any way that we can get a copy of this put up onto the council's website, or what do you have a website?
Yeah, Facebook page, and we can work at
I
some...
don't know what a Facebook is. I don't know how to get to one. Anyway.
It'll also be, usually those are noticed, are also put down at the Green Store. There's a couple different venues, and we'll continue to work on getting that. If we can get the Butte Community Council website access back, we'd love to start doing that.
We need to find who has it.
Oh, I would make a motion.
Hold on, we're not done with the first motion
That
here.
is that motion.
Anyway, we need to make sure that this gets published so that, and on the agenda.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? Mr. Ampe?
Just to let everybody here know, Patty Barber, she started up that Butte Community Council webpage, it's a public group, and there's files and everything there, so anybody can get on there, you just say you like it or something, and just join.
Oh, that was just join in the discussion. Yeah, on the Facebook.
So nobody has to have control over that.
I make a motion.
Hold on, we still have, any more discussion on that?
We still have one motion.
Okay, no more discussion. I'd like a show of hands to put the RSA discussion tax increase on next month's meeting. Show of hands in favor. 20? 21? Opposed? No opposed.
So I make a motion that we ask the board to create a webpage and get a GoDaddy account. You don't need to use the old one. You can start a new one and just link to the archive.
The domain name Butte Community Council is taken.
It's not taken, sir. You buy those. It wasn't repurchased. It's still available. You just need to purchase it for a 2 to 3 year term using either a GoDaddy, and then the old one becomes a link.
Would you be willing to do that for the community council?
Would I be willing to do that? No, I'm not on the council.
Would you be willing to do that?
Buy something?
To
have
bring
the
information
authority.
on that?
There is no, you just go get it.
Would you be willing to
Build you a
participate in that?
website. No,
Okay, thank you.
I didn't get elected.
Any other new business? None? Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn from Patty. A second?
Second.
Back. Any adjourn? Thank you.